Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 336 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our third book just came out a couple of months ago. It's called From Letters to Leaders, Leveraging Your Fraternity or Sorority Experience to Land Your Dream Job. And that's on Amazon. So go and pick up that book today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, I love talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion on our show because it is truly the only way we are going to be able to grow our college student organizations, and it makes us better as organizations. We will make better decisions, faster decisions, and actually be prepared for the complex problems we are facing right now by leveraging all the different lenses that a diverse organization brings to the table. I can't wait to get to our discussion today. So let's meet our guest. Our next guest is Sara Ting. She is a diversity and inclusion trainer, an innovator, a visionary, a speaker, and an author working in D&I since 1985. She shares bold, innovative ideas that are enlightening, empowering, transformative, and sustainable. Her clients served include public schools, colleges, police departments, housing authorities, and healthcare providers. She is the founder and president of World Unity, Inc., a nonprofit organization dedicated to making an enduring contribution to the elimination of all forms of prejudice, bias, and discrimination. They believe this can be achieved with the construction of a permanent landmark, showcasing the sun poem that reads as follows: "Are you greater than the sun that shines on everyone? Black, brown, yellow, red, and white. The sun does not discriminate." And that is copyrighted. Sara was a TV reporter for a major NBC affiliate, a freelance TV reporter covering issues that impacted the Asian American communities for 10 years, and has also been a radio talk show host and producer for 4 years. Welcome to the show, Sara.
Thank you, Michael, for having me. And I love your energy.
Thank you. I try to bring the energy every day because we all need to pick up every morning. I know so many people around the country that listen to the show first thing, so that way they can start their day with a ton of energy, a ton of enthusiasm, and you are a part of it.
Thank you.
All
And you
right,
have a great smile too.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. So I want to talk a little bit about your undergraduate experience because I always ask this question and I get some really interesting answers. You decided on Boston University for your undergraduate degree. It's a wonderful school. I actually toured the campus with my son and daughter this past summer because they're actually deciding which college they want to go to, and BU is up there on their list. So what made BU your choice?
Yeah, there were a couple. One, they did offer me a scholarship, so that really helps.
Oh, yeah.
I felt they had a strong arts program because I did have to submit a portfolio of my work, and it required a lot of effort. And I did visit the school, so it was a combination of the scholarship, visiting the school, and feeling that it had a pretty strong arts program that I made the decision to go to Boston University.
That's fantastic. And of course, the money helps. Being in Boston is great because you have that subway that basically goes right through town. So it's really easy to get around town. You really don't even need a car. And there's a lot of international students that go to Boston University as well. So I really like that diversity of thought that comes to that institution.
However, I have to say, when I went, they didn't have as large of an international student body when I
Yeah.
went.
Yeah, it is definitely increasing. I will tell you that. That is a major part of the student body today. Now, you wrote that sun poem, and it starts, "Are you greater than the sun that shines on everyone?" Tell our audience, how did that particular poem, how did that come about?
Well, it's quite an extraordinary story, Michael. Quite extraordinary. I actually, at the time, was on this spiritual journey to see if God existed. See, my parents did bring us to churches when I was a child. However, they didn't really indoctrinate us with any particular religion. They just exposed us to God. And in my late 20s, I decided, you know what? I really need to find out if God exists. Because as you know, there's three groups of people. There are those who believe in God, those who don't, and those who they're not sure. So I was the not sure person. And I thought, oh, this is going to be easy. All I have to do is find a church and learn about God. Tons of churches in Boston. And so I put on my Sunday outfit. I go to this first place of worship. And at the end of the services, I was hoping that someone would say something to me like, good morning, hello. Because remember, at the time, the Asian population at that time was very, very small, very small. And so I pretty much was the only one wherever I went, including churches. So that first place I went to, I didn't get one greeting, not hello, good morning, nothing. So I was okay with that. I said, well, we'll try another place because there are many. I went to another place, got the same experience. So then I'm thinking, well, maybe I'll go across the river, try another place. Now this church, I have to give you a little bit of the profile. It was a predominantly Black church. Mm-hmm. And the music was divine. I thought I was in heaven. It was so beautiful. I really did. It's like, oh my God, this. And I thought, maybe this place has what I'm looking for. Unfortunately, the same thing happened. Nobody spoke to me. Nobody said one single word. I know you're shaking your head thinking, I can't believe this, Sarah. Like, it's not like you're ugly or something.
You're beautiful, Sarah.
So then I said, okay, I'll go across the river again. I'm going to go. And I came to this place of worship where it was mostly elderly people, only about a dozen. I thought, this place doesn't look like it's going to be around too much longer. So, forget it. Let's just move on. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go back into Boston. I'm a friendly person. I don't have any problems reaching out. So I go back into Boston. And at the end of the services, I see this very well-dressed couple. I said, oh, let me go up to them. I introduced myself. I said, this is my first time here, hoping that we could have like an engaging conversation, welcoming. It wasn't. It was kind of a polite conversation, and then they walked away. So at this point, Michael, I'm feeling really, really dejected. Really dejected. I can even remember exactly what I was wearing. That's how vivid this experience. At the time, my hair came down to my waist. I had a white beret on, had this dark velvet green coat that tied up the waist, these maroon boots that came up to my knees. Okay. Didn't have a car at the time. Go to the bus stop. The bus comes. It's a gray New England day. Gray. Get on the bus. As the bus pulls away from the bus stop, the sun breaks through the clouds. The rays come pouring through the windows on my face. And I hear this calm male voice, Michael, speak to me and said, Sarah, I don't just shine on you, I shine on everyone. And that's how the sun poem was born. Are you greater than the sun that shines on everyone? Black, brown, yellow, red, and white. The sun does not discriminate.
Wow, that is just beautiful and really well said. Now, this poem turned into a citywide multimedia public service campaign promoting racial and ethnic harmony, not only in Boston, it expanded to New York City, to Providence, Rhode Island. So, talk to us about that public service campaign. How did you get that kind of recognition for your poem? And do you believe that that public service campaign was actually successful?
So thank you for that question. So at the time, I was a receptionist for a radio station, and I happened to know a young lady who at the time was a billboard representative. And I shared this poem with her. Michael, she was so deeply moved by it. She said, Sarah, we could put this up on billboards. I go, really? Before I knew it, she put it up on billboards. And then I said, oh, okay, well, let's just say maybe we can get it on TV. And then at Channel 7, I believe, they produced it into a public service announcement. And they aired it on Channel 7. I said, well, there's not just one TV station here, there's two others. Let's see. So then the two other stations aired the PSA. And then I said, well, let's get it onto mass transit. And then this whole campaign took off all over Boston. And I thought to myself, no, wait a minute. Boston's not the only city with prejudice and biases. Let's see if we can get it in some other cities. So I went to New York City so I could work out of my father's office. Now, this took a little bit of an effort, Michael. I had to make phone calls. I got rejected 62 times. But I was determined because I knew, wait a minute, if this can take off in Boston, there's no way. In fact, I had a number of people say to me, that took off in Boston because of the reputation. They said they were like shocked. So the 60-second phone call, I go in. I remember the person's name, Arthur Barnes. I'm sitting across this big wooden desk. He says to me, Sarah, I have a question. Why are you doing this? I said to him, that's a good question. I asked myself that question the other night. Why am I doing this? And in the silence, Michael, I heard this voice again speak to me. And it said, Sarah, if you had anything in the whole wide world that you would like to do, what would it be? The answer I said was, kick off this campaign. Arthur Barnes said, here's what we're going to do. He helped bring all these other nonprofits together. The campaign took off in New York City, billboards, and the PSA. Now, this I had to do on my own. CBS and NBC, I approached them. The networks aired the PSA so it was seen and heard across the country. Subway, poem was put on Subway. So again, all over the city, billboards, PSA on TV, and subways.
Absolutely amazing. That is just an incredible, incredible story. Now, there are many discrimination wounds that have impacted people all over the world. I mean, this has been going on for decades. This has been going on for centuries. This is going on today, and this past week. How do we go from the pain of discrimination to forgiveness?
That's such a great question. First of all, we have to understand that when we forgive, we're not condoning the act at all. Mm-hmm. When we forgive, it's about the person releasing the pain and the hurt that they felt. Because when you don't forgive, you're holding on to the pain. You're holding on to the suffering. Think about Nelson Mandela, who served in prison for 27 years. When he came out, if he didn't forgive the people who put him there, they would have won twice, putting him in prison and now for the rest of his life, because he's holding on to the anger, the pain. So when we forgive, we got to remember it's for ourselves, that we don't hold on to the pain. It's not condoning the action at all. It's for the self. And then you don't let that pain now guide your life or be part of every conversation around diversity and inclusion. The pain, that's not going to help the person. And especially if you want to be an advocate for equality, people are going to be much more receptive if you are filled with love, joy, and peace in your heart versus filled with pain and anger. And to me, the Sun poem can help you get there. Because anytime you feel the anger and the pain towards that person, just remember the sun is shining on you and that other person. It's as simple as that.
Yeah,
hold on to that thought.
You're a good person, Sarah. I tell you, it's just, when you get in the heat of the moment, it's so hard to forgive, and I like what you said there, that you're not condoning the action. It's really for you and it's for you to be able to move forward and to do good in the world. But if you're carrying all of that baggage of discrimination and pain, then it's going to be really hard for you to accomplish your mission. That I understand. So that's really, really good. Now, you're the founder and president of World Unity Inc. This is a nonprofit organization. How does bias influence our career paths in life?
Oh, in so many ways, Michael. If we're not aware of ourselves, think about it. If I was looking for a role model for myself, there were hardly any. There were not. Then what? So I don't have any career path. So to me, what each of us have to do, we have to really sit with ourselves and understand ourselves. And who am I? What are my gifts and talents? Don't let society dictate to you what your gifts and talents are. You've got to figure them out. And then you have to find the right career that will allow you to use your natural gifts and talents. So, for example, for you, Michael, you obviously like to interview people, to talk to people. So that's why you're doing what you're doing. You like to write. You like to speak. So you're following your path in life.
Mhm.
Nobody's dictating to you. And you're not basing on, well, let's see how many people look like me that do it. No, you decide this on your own. And
Yeah.
that's what each young person has to figure out. Sit with yourself and shut out the noise and turn off social media. Sit with yourself and don't compare yourself to any other human being. The person you need to compete with is yourself, no other person.
Mhm.
Compete with yourself. And it's so hard to do that in this competitive world that we live in
Yep.
America and the world. It's so competitive. It's easy to fall into compare. It's so easy to fall into that, especially with social media.
Yeah. I agree
So
completely.
don't look for a career path that where people look like you. Look for what are your skills and talents, and then look for a career that allows you to use those natural gifts and talents. Everybody has different gifts and talents. Does that make sense, Michael?
It makes complete sense to me. I mean, my natural talent is obviously speaking to people, and educating people and using my public speaking in order to reach the masses, and do good in the world in that process, right? I mean, I want this to be a safer place, these college campuses. And so I'm trying to leverage all of those talents. Now, is there anybody out there that looks like me that has my background? Maybe, maybe not. And that's okay. I'm just using my God given talents in order to make this world a better place. That's it. So I like that. And, I started this conversation talking about the value that diversity brings organizations, such as fraternities and sororities, for example. But you could also leverage, the corporate, world as well, because there's a lot of value that they get from having diverse organizations. So, how do we empower today's college students to understand that value of diversity?
Well, I have to say I've never belonged to a sorority or well, not fraternity because I'm a woman,
Yeah.
but I do understand that a lot of these fraternities, sororities, they want to cultivate leadership
Yes.
and a sense of service and giving back to the community and a sense of character.
Yep.
I think, again, what we have to do is look within ourselves because everything, all the answers to life, Michael, are inside of us. We have to develop what's called self-awareness. This is not a new thought or new philosophy. It's been with us for the ages.
Mhm.
A Greek saying that's know thyself. The highest knowledge, know thyself. And it's been proven, businesses say that it's an imperative to have diversity in your workplace. It's a business imperative because they see that it does increase the revenues because we are different in the sense that different cultures and so you learn from diversity. And when you have solution problems, when you have diverse thinking,
Mhm.
that helps solve problems.
Mhm.
When you want to have a richer experience in learning and growing. See, this is the other point, Michael, and I see this in my workshops. How many people want to stop growing? Raise your hand.
No takers.
No. So if you wanted to continue to grow personally and professionally, you have to work on diversity and inclusion. You have to if you want to grow personally and professionally. And this means you have to be willing to step out of your comfort zone.
Mhm.
That's the other challenge we have. Too many of us want to stay in our comfort zone, but
Mhm.
you don't realize you're shortchanging yourself by
Mhm.
staying in your comfort zone.
Mhm.
And I tell people in my workshop the benefit of stepping out of your comfort zone is growth, personally and professionally.
Mhm. Yeah,
Personally and
that's very
professionally.
good.
So I would really encourage your all of your listeners, the students, when you go on your job interviews, ask them the question. I'm curious, how diverse is the workplace?
Mhm.
Ask that question because you're not going to grow as much if you are in a workplace environment where everybody looks like you. You're
Yeah.
not going to grow as much.
I agree completely. That is a fantastic point. If you really want to grow as a person, you better put yourself in a diverse group of people. And I guess that leads to the next question, which is how do we create a culture of belonging in our organization and welcome people of different races, religions, country of origin, physical disability, sexual orientation, if that person might not see somebody else like them in the group?
Yes, and that's a really great question, Michael, because you're right. We have a tendency that we feel a sense of belonging if we see someone who looks like us.
Right.
However, let's remember, I grew up at a time when there were very, very few Asians. I was the only one. So if I was only looking for people who look like me to feel a sense of belonging, I would have been a very lonely child all the time. So to me, again, it starts within the person. It's what do I bring wherever I go? I have to be filled with love and joy in my heart. I can't be depending on Michael to give me a sense of love and joy. It has to start from within me. So that means each of us have to love who we are.
Mhm.
We have to accept ourselves, all of our strengths and all of our flaws. No one is a perfect human being. None of us are. And as we go down this journey of diversity, equity, inclusion, guess what? We're still going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Nobody's a terrible human being for making a mistake. We have to have compassion for one another and realize everybody's at a different point on the scale here. Some of us are a little bit more evolved than others. Doesn't make them a better human being or superior. It just means they're a little bit ahead. That's all.
Mhm.
And so everything has to start within us first. So when I go to some place where nobody looks like me, that's okay. I will reach out and say, hi, my name is Sara Ting. How are you? I love it that I'm the only one there because then I will stand out.
Yeah.
It's like they'll remember me. I mean, Michael, when you were like looking at all the people, did I stand out? Oh, there's an Asian.
I love that perspective. I think that's really, really great. The other thing that I want to talk to you about, you're a great communicator, and that goes through the poem. You see that, and even in just speaking to you, we've had a chance to talk on and off for the last couple of weeks, and it's been really fun. How can college students improve their communication skills to get more productivity, to get better teamwork in their organization?
And that's a great question because the key, Michael, I'm going to make a very bold statement.
Yeah.
But before I make the statement, I'm going to offer this for everybody to think about. So I'm the product of public education in New York City. Did you get public educated too?
I did.
Yeah, okay. So we're in the classroom to learn, right? And in order to learn, don't we have to listen?
Absolutely.
Okay. So do you ever remember having a formal structured class, anywhere between elementary through high school that taught you how to listen?
Never, but I teach college students how to listen today.
Right. So think about that. But this is so profound, Michael. We're all in the classroom to learn.
Yeah.
And in order to learn, we have to listen,
Yep.
but nobody ever teaches us how to listen. So
Nope.
let me tell you some of the ways I've experienced people listening to me with judgment, with assumptions, with biases, listening to make me wrong, they're right, with suspicion. And sometimes they're not even listening. They're waiting for me to finish so they can make their points. That's 6 major ways that people are learning or listen. And so what I'm saying is when we all cultivate our ability to listen, that means you have to be, I'm going to call it conscious listening. Conscious. Like, are you listening to Sara with an assumption? Did you have an assumption before she even opened her mouth? So, for example, I gave a presentation. And at the end of my presentation, I gave a Q&A, and this one man, he was so honest. He said to me, Sara, when you walked into the room, I hadn't even said anything. He goes, boring in his head, boring, because Asian. I guess his experience with Asian people, they're boring. So before I even opened my mouth, he assumed I was going to be boring. And he was honest enough to tell me at the Q&A, but you're not, Sara. In fact, I'd like to recommend you as a keynote speaker. So conscious listening. Are we listening with an assumption? Are we listening with a bias? Are we listening with judgment? Are we listening to make Michael wrong? I'm right. When we listen, people seem to think listening means you agree. And if you don't agree or you don't like what they just stop listening. That's what's creating the divide, the more and more divided we are becoming. When we listen, we're supposed to be listening to seek understanding and seeking the truth. If
Yeah.
we apply those two guiding principles every time you have a conversation, seek understanding, understand who this person is, understand what they're saying to you. It doesn't have to be a heavy topic, but just seek understanding. Maybe they just want to say something frivolous, and that's fine. So, in order to answer to be better, we got to cultivate the ability to listen. Nobody taught anybody how to listen in the entire world. There is no school system in the entire world that's teaching people how to listen. And think about that. That's kind of profound because listening is required in relationships, whether it's romance, friendship, business. When you do business contracts, you don't just stare at each other. You listen, you talk to each other. You got to listen. And my concern right now, Michael, with the digital world we live in, think about it. Text messaging and email, that's one-way communication. Everything's going out, 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 out. That's one way. My fear is that we're going to lose not only the ability to listen, we're just not going to know how to do it anymore because
Yeah.
nobody's listening.
Yeah, you make great points. I mean, these are good lessons for politicians who are on opposite ends of the aisle, not listening to each other. And I think it's also just kind of a warning on social media, for example, not really having the ability, our phones, not having the ability to communicate two-way. So that way we are speaking and then listening to what the other person says, sitting with it, understanding their perspective, and then adding to the conversation. That skill, I mean, it's just lost. I mean, some of those social skills, I'm seeing that a lot of the college students, they just don't have it and don't feel comfortable with it because of their phones. They're just swiping right and left and not having conversations like we did and continue to do. Oh, yeah, we're in trouble. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
We are in trouble. That's what I've learned from this. So
yeah.
we love your books. It's called Small Book with a Big Idea. Tell us about this really fun book series that you have.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. So I have a series, Small Book with a Big Idea. So each book, so I wrote three, each has a simple yet powerful idea. Simple and powerful. So the first book was inspired by the Sun poem because I realized that I might have to really take people through a journey to help them truly understand the value and the power of this poem, and more importantly, the impact discrimination can have on a human being. In that book, I shared this powerful quote by Mother Teresa, who won the Nobel Peace Prize. When I saw this quote, it literally jumped off the page for me. I had to include it in the book. She said, "I've come to realize over the years that being unwanted is the worst disease any human being can experience." So let's just think about that. She said it, being unwanted, the worst disease. Now remember, she was working with people who were dying. She didn't say AIDS is the worst disease. She didn't say cancer. She didn't say leprosy. She said being unwanted. Michael, there are probably thousands, millions of people, young and old, who are experiencing being unwanted every single day across this country.
Yep.
Being unwanted. You could be made to be feel unwanted just by a look, just by a look. So this book helps people understand the impact of discrimination, and I offer this poem as a powerful tool. But I take people through an exercise with this poem so that you can really experience the full depth and breadth of it. A simple exercise, but the key is people have to tune the world out. You have to sit with this exercise, shut off your cell phone, and totally focus on the exercise. And when you do, hopefully you'll discover something new about yourself and you will be more empowered. The second book is about listening, because again, I realized about a decade ago, like, wait a minute, nobody ever really taught us how to listen. I have to tell you, the first 18 years of my life, that's all I was doing was listening. I didn't have any strong opinions about anything. I just listened. And now especially now, we need to cultivate this because there are so many hot issues that push people's buttons. And if we don't cultivate the ability to listen, we're just going to go off on everybody. We're just going to go off on each other and not be able to have these conversations about difficult subjects. And we can have them and come to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the other person, because all the conversation is about learning more about yourself and the other person. So that's the second book, listening. In fact, one of the questions I ask people, and they kind of don't know how to answer it, this is why I say, Michael, how do you listen to empower the other? How do you listen to empower the other? Who's ever asked that question?
That's deep. Nobody.
Right? Right?
That's deep.
And then the third book, The Key to a Fulfilling Life, Self-Awareness. Now, Michael, when I started to write this book, I thought I was going to write a book for recruiters and for professional development to help them so that they can be aware of their unconscious biases and not let that eliminate potential candidates because of their unconscious biases. However, as I started to write the book, I realized, well, wait a minute. Self-awareness, it applies to everybody, and it applies to every aspect of your life, starting from childhood all the way up through adults. It goes back to knowing yourself, understanding, okay, what impact did your parents have on you?
Huge.
Because if you feel like you had terrible parental relationship, parenting, okay, we all didn't grow into a family where we had wonderful mother, wonderful father. Right? There is no perfect household.
None.
So you've got to come to terms with, okay, you can't hold on to the pain and the anger you have, whether it's towards your mother or your father. It's not going to serve you. So anything that I offer is about serving people. It's about helping you understand yourself. So self-awareness, what impact did your parents have on you? What impact did your peers have on you? Did you like compare yourself all the time with your siblings, with your peers? What impact did society have on you? Did you just follow this straight line? Okay, go to high school, go to college, after college, get married, have children, and that's it. Straight line. Like, what is guiding you in making all your decisions? If you don't develop self-awareness, there are things that you're going to do. It won't be because you consciously realize, okay, I'm going to do this. So, for example, society's impact. When I bought my home, at the time, it was unheard of. A single woman doesn't buy a home. You wait until you get married. Really? For me? No. If I have the money, I was creative. I found another woman. We bought a multifamily house together. We did it. But I didn't wait. I didn't let society's values dictate what I was going to do. So again, self-awareness. Everybody has it. It's up to us if we want to develop it and apply it. Nobody, there's a quote that says knowledge is power. There's a missing line, Michael. You know the missing line?
What's that?
Only if you apply it. If you have knowledge sitting in your head and you don't apply it, is that power?
Nope.
Only
Unused.
if you apply it.
Wow, that's really, really good stuff. I love all those books. It's called Small Book with the Big Idea. Excellent series there. Go and pick that up. Now, I love where you live in Boston, and I know there are some amazing restaurants very close to where you live, some of the best in the world. The seafood there is just incredible. Where do you go for a great meal?
Oh yeah, before I answer, I have to tell you one last thing. That third book on self-awareness, I want to share a really short poem with your listeners because I think they would really like it. It's called Being.
Okay.
It says, as long as the sun shines, no, I'm sorry. No one can tell the sun it's great, it just shines. No one can tell the rose it's beautiful, it just blooms. No one can tell the river to move, it just flows. And no one can tell you who you are except you.
Wow, powerful. Powerful words there with Sara Ting. Very nice. So
Yes,
where are you going to eat? What fuels all
yes.
of this?
So you like a nice Chinese meal?
Yeah.
Changshu in Cambridge, Changshu, they have this delicious filet dish that I love with ginger.
Uh-huh.
Changshu, it's right on Harvard. out in Cambridge.
Uh-huh.
Now, if you like Mexican food, there's a place in the Seaport District called Tezmacal Tequila Cantina.
Okay.
Tezmacal Tequila Cantina. Now, on the pricier side, if you're a steak eater,
Yeah.
Abe and Louie's.
Very
I gave
nice.
you three. I gave you three.
That's fantastic. I love all of them. And I tell you what, if my son gets accepted to his dream school, I will try all three because I'm going to be in Boston all the time. So we'll see how it all shakes out. It's going to be very interesting. I find out actually on April 1st. So just get back to
Oh,
me on April 1st and I'll tell you which college he's going to.
I hope he gets a scholarship. It's pretty pricey.
It's very pricey. It's going to cost us an arm and a leg. We'll have to, figure out how to do it. But you know what? Listen, you know that the quality of the schools in that area, they are second to none. And so, it's a generational move to have, him go to one of those institutions. And so, we said we'll do everything to support him, and he's really what the legacy is going to be. I mean, yeah, I'm helping out in any way that I can, but my son, boy, oh boy, he's way smarter than I am.
Well, he's very blessed to have you as his father to do all that you can to
Yeah,
help
I'm
him
gonna
get the
do
best
everything.
education.
Absolutely, I'm going to do everything in my power. So that's really fun. All right, so for all of our college students that absolutely fell in love with you on this interview, where can they go to connect with you, to buy your books, and also get you to speak on their college campus? Where can they go to connect?
Yeah, so asthesun.net, so ASTHESUN.net shows all of my service and shows my books if you go to products. And you can email me at sarating@asthesun.net. If you'd like to invite me to speak, I'd love to speak at your school. sarating@asthesun.net. And ask them, please let me know that you heard me on Michael's show so I know where you came from on Michael's
Fantastic.
show. And
Let
I hope that
Sara Ting know that you heard about her on the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. That way she can send me some really nice thank you notes about all the business that she's going to have going forward. So I appreciate you, Sara. You're a wonderful spirit, and I'm just glad to know you. So thank you so much for spending time with us today on the show.
my pleasure, Michael, and I wish you nothing but continued success in all of your endeavors. Let's change the world together, Michael, okay?
Let's do it. Let's change the world together. That's a deal. And to all of our listeners, I hope you enjoyed this talk with Sara today. Make sure that you like it, share it on social media with other students that need to hear her words. And we hope to see you on another episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.